So this is one of those situations where coincidence leads to the idea for a video. The other day I'm going through comments and on one of our recent videos, and one of the viewers wrote in saying that back in 1971 they bought a new Duster Twister 340, and it was like one of the best cars they ever owned, and on and on and on. And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to say anything. He may be like a really old guy, maybe he's like in his 80s, he might be like senile. Just smile and let it go. A couple hours later, I'm on Facebook Marketplace, and I'm just scrolling through to see what I see, and I see an ad for 1971 Duster Twister 340 tribute car. And I'm like, faceplant time, right? You can't have a 1971 Duster Twister 340 tribute car. First, because there was never any such thing as a Duster Twister 340. Didn't exist. And the second is that the Twister itself was a tribute car to the 340 Duster. So to build a tribute of a tribute, it was like a double negative. It kind of cancels itself out. So I says, you know what? This is a great topic for a video. Let's go through the history of these cars because they're very misunderstood. And the Twister, along with a couple of other models. So I figured, let's do this. Let's take a trip down history lane here and look at the imposter cars. Very popular in the early 70s. So you have to go back to the late 60s. And at that time, if you were into the muscle car thing, you had a lot of pressure. There was a lot of pressure on you. The walls were closing in. You had the emissions people that were like, you got to clean all this stuff up, we're all going to die, right? And then you had the insurance people, and the insurance people were like, no, you've gone too far. Everybody's going to die in these cars. And then you had the safety people, and the safety people were all the same way. No, too much. This has gone too far. Everybody's going to die. So it was just doom. It was like total doom. You had all of the coolest cars in the world on the market at the time, but this black cloud of impending doom hanging over everybody's head. So the insurance company, it really got started, I believe, when you look back over it all, it really got started with the introduction of the 68 Roadrunner. The insurance companies right away started labeling those things as kamikaze kiddie cars because they were targeted at, they were cheap cars. It was all about performance, and you had the cartoon stuff, so it appealed to the hooligan youth. Here's a cheap hot rod, go out and do stupid things with it, and they did in masses. More of those cars got wrapped around the pole than ever got to survive, to be restored today. But that really got the ball rolling against the muscle car movement. So the insurance companies really started to tack on severe surcharges to anything that was labeled a muscle car. And there were several models that came about in 1969, 1970 that used smaller cubic inch engines, but potent smaller cubic inch engines that, they packed a big punch, but they didn't have the numbers that scared the insurance company. So there were ways to get around the insurance thing. But there was a big segment of the market that really just wanted the look. They didn't want to pay the insurance premiums. They didn't want to pay for premium gas. They had no intention of burning rubber or anything like that. But they wanted to be in with the in crowd, So at that time, 1970, everything is loud colors, scoops, and spoilers, and mag wheels, and you want the image, but you don't really want the penalty that goes along with it. You have no intention of ever burning rubber. So Ford was the first in the market with what we call an image car, or an imposter car, whatever you want to call them. So in 1970, Ford introduces the Maverick. Now the Maverick's kind of an interesting story in itself. They brought out the Maverick to replace the Falcon. The basic Falcon platform wasn't going to meet the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration standards for 1970, so they had to rebody the whole car. And that's where the Maverick came from. And it originally styled in that spirit of late 60s muscle. It's got that little spoiler built into the back. It's got a very curvy, aggressive sort of body line to it. But it was intended to be an economy compact car. It was only originally available with 6-cylinder engines. You couldn't get a 302, and only a 302 two-barrel until 1971. 1970, only 6 cylinders. And As far as I know, the 70 Maverick has the longest single year production run of any car. They introduced it as a 70 model in the late spring of '69 and continued it all through the 1970 year. So it had like 15 to 16 months of continuous production. But midway through the year, early 1970, he says, well, you know what? The car's got a kind of aggressive look to it, but it's an economy car. Let's doll this thing up. And they came up with the Maverick Grabber. So the Maverick Grabber was just the basic six-cylinder. There were only two six-cylinder options on it, no V8. It was just a basic six-cylinder car, but with fatter wheels, all of the high-impact colors, or the bright colors, the muscle car colors that they had, and then they added stripes, blacked out the grille. So it gave the car a really aggressive muscle car feel to it, muscle car look to it, but just a regular six-cylinder engine. And they sold like crazy because a lot of people, the general public, doesn't really care about burning rubber, but they want to look cool. So they bought Maverick Grabbers like there was no tomorrow. And the Grabber package lasted pretty much all the way through the Maverick, the lifespan of the Maverick body. I think at the end they started calling it a rustler, but the Grabber was like a cornerstone of the Maverick line. And it was never ever offered in a performance version. The biggest engine you could ever get in a Grabber was a 302 two-barrel. All right. So the Maverick is a success right off the bat. And Chrysler had been working on competition for it from the get-go. And it was going to be in the form of the Plymouth Duster, styled along that same theme as the Maverick. You know, it was a nice looking car. It wasn't just a box. It had some curves to it. It had that muscle car appeal, but with that, or the muscle car feel to it, but without ever intending to be a muscle car. The Duster was only supposed to be an economy compact. Six-cylinder, 198, 225, and a 318 two-barrel. That was the big advantage that the Duster had over the Maverick. It was available with a V8 from the get-go. But they also needed, or they had available to them, a perfect performance package with the 340. So now here's what happened with this. Originally, the Duster 340 was not supposed to be the Duster 340. The original Duster 340 package was supposed to be called the Duster CK. So the Duster CK, the idea behind the Duster CK was it was going to be a very low-keyed car. No visual differences between the Duster CK and the regular standard slant six Duster. But it was going to have the 340. And when you open the hood on the thing, it was supposed to have, you know, the insulation padding on the bottom of the hood. Well, it was supposed to be red with the Superman logo in it. So the CK stood for Clark Kent. So it was going to be an undercover supercar. Brilliant, brilliant idea. And right along the lines of, you know, the Roadrunner, you know, capitalizing on that cartoonish type of thing. But they couldn't secure the copyrights to it the same way they did with Warner Brothers and the Roadrunner. So they let that idea pass. But in the meantime, there wasn't really a concept for a visual performance package for 1970 for the Duster, for the 340 Duster. It was available in all the different various high impact colors at the time. And you obviously get the rally wheels on it. It came standard with hubcaps, but you can get rally wheels on it. But it had the stock Valiant grille in it. In fact, it was called 1970. It wasn't even called a Duster on its own. It was a Valiant Duster. So the 7340 Duster was a relatively low-key car. 71, they caught up to where they probably should have been in 1970 with it. So in 1971, they added a couple of features that are iconic for the 340 Duster. The first is the shark's tooth grille. It's probably one of the most elaborate and beautiful grills ever fitted to one of these cars. The muscle car, period. The muscle car era, period. Why they call it a shark's tooth, I don't know. There's no pointy aspects of it. It's just a lot of vertical slats. But it's a beautiful grille. Very iconic, and it was the signature for the 340 Duster. They added the full stripe. They put the big 340 call out on the rear quarters. Available on all of the high impact colors. And they had blackout treatments. So the car, the 1971 340 Duster, really started to look the part of a muscle car. But you still had that big segment of the population that had no interest in burning rubber. They just wanted the look. They wanted the loud colors, they wanted the stripes, they wanted the wheels, they wanted the basic image, but they didn't want to burn rubber, and they didn't want to pay the insurance premiums, and they didn't want to have to pay for premium gas. They just wanted to motor down the road in something sedate that looked like it was crazy. And that is where the Duster Twister came in. So what they did was they took the basic 6-cylinder, actually it's the opposite of the CK concept, the Duster CK concept. And they took the basic 198, 225, or 318 Duster, and they added all of the 340 Duster stuff to it. It was available in all of the high impact colors. It had the side stripes. It had optional wing on the back, the Go wing. It had a special hood treatment. So it had a strobe stripe that went down the middle of the hood along with the blackouts on the side. That was standard equipment. Two interesting options on the Duster Twister. And the first is the scoops. So the 340 Duster was only available with a flat hood. There were no scoops involved in it. But the Duster Twister had the 1969-1970 Dodge Ram Charger twin scoops on it as an option. So that's, here they are on this car. They didn't have the chrome on the front edge like the Dodges did. So the only cars that had those were, previous to this, were the 69, 70 Super B and RT and the 7340 Swingers. I'll get to the Dodge Demons in a second. So that was the concept of the Duster Twister. All of the visuals in this package, but none of the punch. It was just a basic economy Duster. Now, they also had one extremely unusual feature that I have scratched my head over now for literally for decades. I don't know why they did this, why Chrysler Marketing did this. But the Twister came standard with the rally wheels. The difference between a 340 Duster with the rally wheels and a Twister Duster with the rally wheels is that the Twister didn't come with trim rings. And they actually talk about it in the copy. They tell you it comes with the rally wheels, but it doesn't come with trim rings. And it was the only car, it was the only version of any of these Chrysler cars that had those rally wheels that didn't come with trim rings. They were just like standard. And in fact, on those rims, the trim rings were almost kind of crucial because they add depth to the circles. You have to look at pictures of them with and without trim rings to know exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, they came without trim rings. Why, I don't know. All right, so that's the Twister. The Twister had a Dodge equivalent in the Demon Sizzler. So originally there was no plan for a Dodge version of the Duster body, but they sold like hotcakes. They went crazy in 1970. So what they did was they took the 71 Dodge Swinger front sheet metal, the front fenders, the grille, the hood, and everything else, and they put it on the Duster body, which is a shorter wheelbase than the Dart, and came up with the Demon. Mid-year 1971 introduction. So to mimic the Duster Twister, the Demon had what they call a Sizzler package. And here's one of the weird twists of all of this. The 1971 Demon 340. So remember now, the Swinger no longer had the 340. Only if you had a Dodge, if you wanted a Dodge and you wanted a 340 engine, the only car you could get it in was now the Demon. And the Super B. It was actually an option. It was a step-up option over the 383 and the Super B. But as far as the Duster-bodied cars, or the Demon-bodied cars, that was the only home for the 340. And those cars came with those same Ram Charger scoops, the 6970 Dodge Ram Charger scoops. There was no fresh air system underneath them, the Ram Charger system like they had on the B-bodies. But those scoops were standard equipment on the 71 340 Demon. Same ones they used on the Twister. But you couldn't get any scoop at all on the Sizzler package. Right? Did I say that right? Yes, I said that right. I don't know why they couldn't put the Dodge scoops on the Dodge body. Probably just so that the 340 Demon had its own visual identity. The Sizzler package lasted for a year or so. Didn't sell a lot of them. So it's not over there. They kept the Twister package around until 1973. And in 73, Chrysler did some, I guess they were running out of money. You know, the smallest of the big three, and they were always looking to pinch pinch pennies and cut corners a little bit. So for 1973, Chrysler raided the 1969 Barracuda parts book and stole some parts from it. They redesigned the Dart for 73. They made what they call what's known today as the beak nose darts. And those cars had a separate header panel. So previous year Darts, the hood went right to the front of the grille. But in 73, there was a separate header panel and the hood fit behind it. Well, what they did was they robbed the 1969 Barracuda hood and they stuck it on the Dart body, 1973. The only difference between the 69 Cuda hood and the 73 Dart hood are some notches underneath in the framework for the crumple zone. But other than that, they're exactly the same hood and they're interchangeable. The hinges, the latches, everything. But for the Duster Twister, they used the 1969 Plymouth Cuda Performance Package scoops. These things right here, odd little scoops, non-functional, that fit at the back of the Barracuda hood. Well, in 73, they used them on the Twister package. So there's a lot of 1969 Barracuda in the 1973 Chrysler lineup. And that was the end of that. So the Twister was always just an image package. It was a tribute to its higher performance versions, which would make it a tribute, which would mean that if you made a tribute of a Duster Twister, you'd be making a tribute of a tribute, and that doesn't really work, does it? But they're interesting cars. They're beautiful cars. They're great cruisers. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better daily driver type of car. You know, they still run on regular gas and no fuss, no muss. They get decent gas mileage. They're nice cars. But you come across a Twister and somebody says, yes, it originally had a 340 6-pack and blah, blah, blah. No, it didn't. It had a slant 6 or a 318 2-barrel. And none of them came with dual exhaust. I've seen that come up too. People saying, no, the Twister had dual exhaust. No, the Twister only ever had a single pipe coming out the back of it. The only cars, the only 318 2-barrel cars that ever had a factory installed dual exhaust were the 73, 74 Roadrunners. The base engine on those cars was a 318 2-barrel, but they needed to stick with that Roadrunner image, and those flamethrower exhaust tips were a big visual part of the package. So the 73, 74 Roadrunner 318 is the only factory car, 318 2-barrel factory car, that came with a dual exhaust stock. All right, so that's it. I hope you got something out of that. I'll see you tomorrow.